The famous science communicator Carl Sagan once said, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself." Now, he's not talking about our chakras or releasing positivity into the universe. No, he is literally talking about our physical beings, our bodies. Hey everyone, I'm Tony from Messier, and you are watching the Astronomy Masters Program on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay caught up while I teach you everything I learn in my Masters Program as I learn it. Here we go. We are made of star stuff. In this video, we'll learn how we, humans, are literally created by faraway stars in the universe. Now, if you haven't watched my last video on how the universe began, check it out here for a little background on this section. You see, what Carl Sagan really meant is that the atoms and molecules that make up your blood and bones were once at the center of an explosive death of a star across the vast reaches of space. Now, this next part is a little bit complicated, but we're going to be taking a deep dive in a later chapter, so hold tight. You see, as galaxies formed and matter within the galaxies clumped together, their gravity rose. They pulled in more matter, and eventually the pressure was so intense in the center of these clumps that hydrogen, which is what made up almost all of the universe, hydrogen atom fused together to form helium under all this pressure. This process is known as nuclear fusion, and it produced a lot of energy. Now, the balance of the nuclear fusion's outward energy and the gravity's forces pulling inward creates what we know as a star. A huge ball of gas and dust constantly giving off energy, as we see as light and heat, by converting hydrogen to helium under immense pressure. Okay, great. We've got hydrogen and helium covered, but we're not made of that, right? Haven't I heard something about carbon and skin? Like, what is my skin made out of? Is it hydrogen and helium? Okay, hold tight. You see, with stars, we have observed them to have a life cycle. They are born, they live, and they die. Now, really cool side note here. They live in a balanced state called hydrostatic equilibrium. You do not have to remember this term. I actually made another video on it. I'll link it below. But basically what happens is the force of the nuclear fusion pushes outward on the star. Meanwhile, the gravity pulls inward on the star. And when these forces are balanced, it's called hydrostatic equilibrium. And it's basically the state that a star lives almost its entire life. So basically, when the outward nuclear pressure equals the inward force of gravity, then after billions and billions of years of this balanced equilibrium, they run out of hydrogen to burn. They run out of fuel. They don't produce any more outward pressure, and gravity wins, pulling all of that material to its center and exploding it across space. In fact, the most massive stars die in insanely massive explosions called supernovae. Singular is supernova. Plural is supernovae. You could say supernovae, supernovae, it doesn't matter. Not supernovas. It's just not the proper term, but say what you want. Okay, so after these explosions called supernovae, the released matter, the stuff that's burst into space, mixes with other matter floating between the stars and the galaxy, eventually becoming parts of new clouds of gas and dusts, which form new generations of stars to be born. So galaxies are basically cosmic recycling plants, recycling material expelled from dying stars into new generations of stars and planets. So let's get back to the question. I'll give you this freebie. If the early universe only contained hydrogen and helium, how were we, humans, who are made out of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and iron, created? Where did these other elements come from? Evidence shows that these massive explosions that occur when a star dies can convert hydrogen and helium to these heavier elements that make up you and I over time. In fact, by the time our solar system formed, earlier stars had already converted up to 2% of our galaxy's original hydrogen and helium into heavier elements like carbon and nitrogen. Therefore, the cloud of gas and dust that gave birth to our solar system was made of roughly 98% hydrogen and helium and 2% these other elements. This 2% may sound small, but it was more than enough to make all of the small rocky planets in our solar system, including Earth. And on Earth, some of these elements became raw ingredients for life. Elements that, when nurtured by the sun and Earth's growing natural environment, became the series of evolutionary processes that ultimately produced human beings. So, in short, the metal in the device you're watching this video was created inside of a star that lived and died before the birth of our sun, and so were you. So when people say, like, we are cosmic beings, people get really spiritual about that, and that's fine. but it's also a very literal thing. We are made of star stuff. Thank you for watching this lesson. Please subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss next week's lesson. And if you are new to the Astronomy Masters Program, stick around and you'll see a link on this video screen to the playlist where you can watch all the rest. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.